Hello, everyone. Hi. Hopefully you can all hear me. My name is Precious Blake. Thank you so much for joining the Mid-Atlantic Teaching Artists Virtual Retreat. I work at the Maryland State Arts Council, and I'm happy to be with you today. The session will be recorded and later shared, so please turn off your video if you do not want to be recorded. Today's workshop is called The Power of Ritual Practices and will be led by Nicoletta de la Brown. Nicoletta is an amazing person, and before we get into intros and the workshop, I will turn things over to our producer for a brief review of some technical housekeeping items.
Thank you, Precious. My name is Susan Zahl, and as Precious said, I will be the producer today, taking care of some technical issues here. I wanted to show you if you want to pin the interpreter, and if you have not seen the interpreter on the list, her name, she put the word interpreter in front of her name, Laura. You can find her video camera, and you can select pin video so that you see just that video. Another option would be on the top right of your screen where you see it says gallery view. If you want to see everybody that has their videos on, you would click on gallery view to get that view. And just type into chat if you have any questions, and I will follow up after I go through a few of these things. If for some reason you get disconnected, you can just rejoin using the same link you had. As Precious said, this session is getting recorded, so if you did miss something, don't worry, we'll get it to you. And if you need help, you can write down my cell number in case you do get bumped out and have trouble. You can give me a call at 610-864-8206. I'll chat that out as well, so don't worry if you don't get it all down right now. A couple things I wanted to point out is your meeting controls. If you don't see them, if you point and hover your cursor at the bottom of your screen, they should pop out. To the far right, you will see where it says chat. If you double click on that, you should be able to type in a quick hello, which I've already seen many of you doing. And that's a great way to ask some questions, and I know Precious will be monitoring that for Nicoletta. And then the other thing I wanted to point out was the participant panel. If you double click on that, that will pop out, and I want to just point out a couple things on there. Is one, you can change your name. So if you want to change your name, maybe your name didn't come in the right way, it's just your last name, you want to put your first name in, or maybe you want to put your pronouns in, go ahead and do that. You would right click next to your name where it says more, hover your cursor there, and then you should be able to rename yourself, and you can go ahead and try that if you like. At the bottom of your participant panel, you will see some icons. They'll look a little different than this, but same icons with lower, you have a raised hand, which is a blue hand, and you can go ahead and try that if you want. You can do a green check or red X. If you need to pop away for a minute, under more, you see where that clock is, that'll give you a, that'll let us know that you had to step away. And with that, I'm going to send it back to Precious.
Thank you so much, Susan. So Nicoletta Darita de la Brown is a performance artist, interdisciplinary sculptor, filmmaker, and mother of 4. She's also a very dear friend of mine. She is a Black Latinx, proud to be a first-generation Panamanian born in the United States. She is a shaman and comes from a long line of healers. You can read her full bio on the Teaching Artists Retreat website. Please welcome Nicoletta, and let's begin the session.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, Precious. So before we jump in, I would like to do what I call a grounding. It's kind of a mini meditation. So I just want you to get comfortable, and I want us to kind of be present. So let's begin by taking a moment to relax. Soften any tension in your shoulders, in your back. Find a position that feels comfortable. Now, if you would like to, please close your eyes. Rest your hands in an easy, effortless way. Be aware of your body, your breathing, your chest rising and falling with each breath. Just for now, lay down any weight you are so patiently bearing upon your shoulders. Imagine a red balloon. Fill it with any worries. Fill it with your thoughts. Are you holding it tight? Do you want to let go? Now release. Feel the balloon gently rising into the sky, taking with it any worries, any thoughts. Watch it rise. Getting smaller and smaller. Watch it float away. Feel yourself supported by the ground. Be aware of your body, your breathing, your chest rising and falling with each breath. When you are ready, breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. When you are ready, open your eyes. And so as you kind of rejoin consciousness, take into account where you're sitting. Are you sitting in a comfortable way? And during this entire time, please be really mindful of your body and how you feel. So mini meditations are something that I do for myself all the time throughout the day. They are part of the rituals that I practice. And what I want to do is kind of share with you why I'm so passionate about them and then go through kind of the flow. So Susan, if you can advance the slide, please, that would be amazing. So this is something I say myself all the time. Imagine if we obsessed about the things we loved about ourselves. So I'm going to intro myself a little bit, share a little bit about me and why rituals are so important to me. As Precious mentioned, I'm a mother of 4. I'm an educator, I'm a teacher. So I used to teach at Baltimore School for the Arts. I was supporting 100 students a day. I'm adjunct at MICA. I, as of yesterday, am adjunct at Towson University in the art department. And I'm a teaching artist and a community artist. So what I do as a creative is not only share my passion and my first language, which is art, with the world, but I also support others with that voice. And so the reason why it's so important to me is because I believe with my whole heart that we cannot pour from empty cups. In fact, I believe that we should support others from the overflow. And so what I mean by that is, as educators, as artists, as, like I said, I'm a mother of 4, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm all of these things, I have to support myself. I know many of you are mentioning the chair, my throne. That is literally how I support myself. During all of this, back in March, when the world shifted dramatically and I realized that my entire world was going to be happening in my home, I said I needed a throne. Because if the world was going to be coming into my sacred environment, then I was going to show the world who I am, and I was going to have a throne. So I'm sitting in front of it. It's much bigger than it appears. I'll show you that. See, it's a giant chair. But that's one of the ways that I love myself. So thanks for pointing that out. I also use rituals to support me as a being. So we'll go through these exercises. If you have questions about anything, please drop it in the chat, and Precious will definitely let me know, and we'll talk them out. You can share things, and then we'll have more time at the end to kind of do some more Q&A. But if you have a question, please raise your hand if you want to be on screen. I'm happy to answer, or if you want to drop it in the chat. Okay, so we're going to go to the first exercise. Can you go to the next slide, please, Susan? So the first set of rituals that I really started to address and look at were boundaries. And for me, boundaries completely changed. I never had my students in my home. I never had my children sitting next to me while I was teaching or in meetings. I never really had to think about if it was safe for me to go outside. And so boundaries became very, very important. And I had to really look at my values, like what my personal values were, and then what boundaries I wanted to really shore up or add or adjust or shift. And so what I would love for you to do is to look at this slide. And this is the way that I actually broke things down. So the first thing that I did when I was looking at my boundaries is I started to think about what are my boundaries? Emotional, mental boundaries, time and energy, relationship and conversational, personal and physical, material and content. So I would like to invite you to write these down. Write down all of these different types of boundaries and think about how they show up in your life or how they do not. So what's really important now is that since your life has changed, especially as teachers, as artists, and as all the ways we show up, the world has changed, and therefore we need to change how we expect the world to interact with us. So for a simple thing, commutes. We used to have commutes. I used to have to go to my studio to teach or go to the school to teach. Now everything comes to me. So even that commute time changed. So think about what things that you can are really important to you in terms of these boundaries. Is it time? So for example, I now no longer have meetings at all before 10 a.m. It's just a way for me to settle in. My children are home. I'm helping them get rest and get ready for the day. So it's look at all of those things. And then after you write down all of your different types of boundaries and then start to think about the ones that maybe are porous, and maybe they need to be more firm or you need to shift and adjust, then draft what I call your gentle no statements. I love these because the world still thinks you're the same. People will reach out and say, oh, well, now I know you're not busy. How do you know? You don't know. So people, will draft what I call my gentle no's, my ways of telling people this no longer works for me. And I sit with it. And I think about how I'm going to share that with the world. And so that is actually part of a ritual. A ritual for this, for the boundaries, the first ritual is actually you're going to be sitting down with yourself, carving out time away from distractions, away from other people. Can I define the boundaries? Was that a question? Okay. Is there a question about the boundaries?
Hi, Nicoletta.
Yeah. Who was, oh, I missed it. Is someone talking? Okay.
I think, Kelly, did you have a question? Can you define the boundaries or give more examples?
Sure. So if that's helpful, yes, let me define the boundaries. So when I say emotional boundaries, one way to think about it is that you can think about what are appropriate topics for you to talk about. So sometimes when I'm in a meeting, there may be something that someone's asking me that I feel is inappropriate. There's a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot of things that feel heavy. And so an emotional boundary for me is that I will say what I will and will not engage with emotionally. If I'm in a meeting about something specific, I'm not, or talking to a friend, I will say, this is my boundary around emotions, because right now I am saturated, or this is as much as I can take on. When it comes to mental, it's about kind of your thoughts, your beliefs, and your values. So sometimes if there's a topic that I'm not interested in discussing, I'll say I appreciate that you want to talk to me about that very weighted thing. I do not have the capacity and bandwidth to talk about that right now, because and that to me is an emotional and mental boundary. When it comes to time and energy, it's around like timeliness or lateness, or when people contact you and how. So I think of now, like as a creative and the way I show up in the world, people were like, oh, I can access Nicoletta. You can't just text me because you have my phone number, or just email me because of that, or just because you know that my schedule is different doesn't mean that I have more time. So really thinking about also timeliness. Now with these meetings, it's like, if you're a person that if someone is late, it's like being like mindful of your time. So like I said to you, I don't start meetings at all during the week or period before 10 a.m. anymore. I enjoy that morning time for myself. So it's a boundary I set. And energy, it's also like, how much can I give? If I'm feeling like something is overwhelming, that life, there's a lot going on, I will say this is as much energy as I can give out. And I will put that, define it, and then say that's as much as I can give. Relationship and conversational, when it comes to that, really what that has to do with is like what you're going to talk about and the relationships you have. So sometimes it's just like this relationship with this person maybe feels like it needs to be a little bit more defined because we're working in a different way now. We're friends, or maybe we're acquaintances. So really looking at the way that you want to communicate with people. Personal and physical. What I mean by personal is like, this is my personal space and this is my physical space, but I decide what limits I have on how much people can kind of be in that space. And then when it comes to material and content, it's more about, for me, when I think about it, potentially, I think about as an artist, it's like, what content? And people are like, well, you can create this. Yes, I can create this, but I don't really have the capacity and bandwidth. So it's really thinking about all of those things, and then what you're willing to give and what ways. And then you can, like I said, draft your gentle no's, and then think about ways that you can practice your boundaries. So let me go back to my notes for this. So for example, I'll give you some for me. I don't do any meetings before 10 a.m. I spend 2 hours in the morning meditating. I go outside at a time when there's very few people outside. I do some things before my children wake up. I turn off my phone at a certain time, like at 7 p.m. It goes on night mode automatically, and I have a nighttime routine. And so what happens with these boundaries is now people have to learn them. And I just gently say, oh, I don't do calls before 10 a.m. Can we do it at another time? So I practiced them. And at first it was a little bit like, this is a challenge, because people were used to, well, meetings start at 9 a.m., but not in my world, not now. So definitely take a moment and think about these. We're going to go to the next slide unless there's questions. But think about your boundaries. So another set of rituals that I do on a regular basis, especially when I'm teaching, is shifting my focus. A lot of times I was noticing that I would have time buffered in between meetings, in between classes, in between conversations and interactions. But with the onset of everything happening in the same space at the same time, everything happening in Zoom or Google Hangouts or FaceTime or phone calls, that meetings were happening almost back to back. So that was one, to go back to we're not going to go back to the slide, but to think about boundaries. I set a parameter and a boundary, a buffer in between all of my interactions. For example, I have a workshop that I'm teaching today. I intentionally have nothing else going on today. My children are with their dad. I was able to fully fill my cup, do meditation, do my releasing practices, do all of my rituals for myself so that I could be fully present for all of you. And then after this, I have practice that I do after this. So when I'm thinking about going into teaching in a couple of weeks with my students, I will be thinking about, how can I shift my focus from 5 minutes ago, I was 100% mom because my children needed breakfast, to now I'm teacher. And so part of what I do is I think about how to shift my focus. I use the senses. So if you look at that on the slide, you'll see smell, taste, touch, sound, and sight. I wrote down all of these and I thought about things that would help me get from that moment to this moment, to not be thinking about an email that I sent a few hours ago, or think about a phone call I need to make, but what can I do to bring me into the now? So I use things for smell like aromatherapy. I use essential oils. I have them right next to me at all times. So during this moment, I can get back to being here. Taste. When I'm in these moments, I always have something that I can taste. I have right now a hibiscus tea so that I can bring myself into this moment. Touch. I make sure that I have something close to me that can make me feel soothed. Sound. Sound has become really important to me. So I love water, so water sounds are really powerful. I will put on some kind of a playlist in between meetings or some kind of a soundscape. And sight. I think about what I can see and what others can see. So that's part of what this is for me. It's like if I'm going to be sitting looking at a screen and I can see myself and others can see me, I think about what do I want to present to the world as a creative, as a person? And also, what am I looking at? And what's around me that can shift my focus? So a thing that you can think about is how to discover soothing sensations. What materials can you gather? Discover your how. So what would be a wonderful thing to do is to sit and take a moment and think about smells and taste and touch and sound and sight, and what things you could incorporate into your life, into your practices while you're teaching, before you're teaching, and after. And then how can you reset? Like, how can you center and ground yourself? So I'd like to ask, does anyone have things that they've added into their life that have been about shifting their focus, like in an instant, that have to do with sensation? Are there anything, does anyone use essential oils or any other things? I would like to hear how potentially other people are thinking about smell and taste and touch and sound. Watering your flowers. So that's wonderful. That's an actual like physical thing. Aromatherapy. Okay. You're using a massage chair. That's brilliant. You're sitting in a massage chair while you're in, yes, that's brilliant. Candle. Okay. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Humming and singing to yourself. Lavender oil next to you. Classical music. Yes. So these are all great. And so as you think about these things, create rituals around them. And when I talked about coupling briefly, I'll talk about it now and then we'll keep going through some of the exercises. You listen to soundscapes. So think about how you can start to create rituals that are coupled with your routines. For example, I use meditation. I meditate 3 times a day. I have a morning meditation. I have a mini meditation sometime throughout the day. And then I have a nighttime meditation. My morning meditation is movement based. So I go for a walk sometime between 6 and 8 a.m. And I have a meditation practice. I have places that I go outside and I meditate. And it became a part of it went from, routine to ritual because it actually is filling my cup. I feel like if I got that meditation and that walk in, my day is brilliant. And it's even before 8 a.m. Another thing to think about is like shower. If you're taking a shower, you could add a meditation or some kind of appreciation practice into that time that you're taking a shower or washing your face or brushing your teeth or washing the dishes. A quick thing that I added to my practice was during folding laundry. I have 4 children, so there's lots of laundry. And so a ritual that I have is to have soothing sounds and then have my essential oil diffuser going while I'm folding laundry, and then it becomes a meditative practice. And so I feel like even though I'm doing something that I know is supportive of others, I'm actually also supporting myself. So think about things that you can add to your routine and your rituals, and especially as we start to go into the classroom, what you can do to set yourself up for success in that way. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you for sharing. Okay, thank you for sharing. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the power of color. This is something that is, especially as a creative, it was easy for me to think about, but as a shaman and the fact that I use the chakras as a part of my rituals and my practices. And right now I am very much attuned to my root chakra. That's why I'm wearing all red. It is a part of my spiritual practice, but it's something that actually can really change your mood. It can change your physiology. It can really change your mindset. Is what are you wrapping yourself in? What are you drinking? What are you eating? What are you looking at? And so I also think there's a psychology to color. So whether you're looking at it from the spiritual aspect, like I do, where I look at the chakras, or you think about it from, art theory, or you're looking at like design theory and what colors mean, we all have colors that resonate with us. So the first thing I would suggest that you do is think about colors and think about how they make you feel. So what I first did was I made a list of types of feelings. If I want to feel strong or calm or inspired or secure, because if I was feeling anxious energy, anxiety or worry or stress, or there were moments at the beginning of this period, like I can remember specifically in March, where I was just crying. And I was like, well, what can I do to soothe myself? So think about those different emotions that you want to embody. So if I want to feel strong and powerful and grounded, I often wear red. Not only is it connected to my root chakra, but it also makes me feel powerful because of what it associates it with. Like I think about my grandmother, I think about certain spices, I think about certain flowers, I think about how red feels. But when I think of calm, sometimes for me, I might put on something that's like a very buttery yellow, or I may wrap myself in something that's that color. Or when I think of being inspired, I may think of a color that's purple because I think of royalty. So if you think about colors and you think about how there may be certain colors that you associate with certain feelings or certain people. When I miss my mom, I often put on red because my mom, she's in her 60s and I can't see her as often as I like. So sometimes when I'm thinking about my mom, I will put on red, or I'll wear something red, or I'll eat something red, or I'll make something red, or I'll put red in my environment. So think about those things, and then think about how you can infuse them into your practice and into your process. And think about how they can support you. So it's really kind of lovely too, when you're thinking about rituals that you're going to create around these exercises, you may want to sit down with something you love. I do something that I call Sisterhood Tea. I have friends of mine who are artists. A lot of them are artists, and a lot of them are moms. Some of them are not moms. Some of them are just other artists or just my friends or family. And I'll make a pot of tea and I'll sit in front of a camera like this, and we'll talk about these things. And I'll say I'll ask them questions. What things are you doing? What colors do you love? And I really found a really deep connection with my mom in that way, and some of my really close friends, where we sit down and we talk about the things that are supporting us. And that in itself, you can build a ritual around connecting with others in a way that you're supporting yourself and you're also supporting them. So can anyone share? I would love to hear what colors you think of and like if you give me a color and then a feeling, and then, you know, I just would love to see what colors resonate with you. Yellow makes you happy. Anybody else? Red. So does red, green, the heart chakra. Orange for energy. See, I love that. And if you start to think about it, even in your classroom spaces, if you're teaching, you can also start to infuse some of these and ask people to show up soft green. So think about these colors and how you want to wrap yourself in them and how you want to infuse them into your environment. Blue is calming. So start to also think about, yeah, oh, I love hydrangea petals. So you can bring in objects. Aqua, you can bring in things. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. Oh no, this one got all wonky when it was downloaded. Well, we'll work with it. What it said was, remember your greatness. And so this is one of the most powerful kind of exercises that I've done for myself. Oh, it looks like it corrected itself. So remember your greatness. One thing that I found is that during this time, you know, when there's social distancing and so much unrest and there's things happening and I feel like I'm not in control or I don't know what's going on, it sometimes impacts my spirit. And I'm wondering, is it me or is it the environment I'm in? Is it me? Am I the only one feeling this? And so this is an exercise that I do in a practice that I do so that I can remember that I am bigger than a moment, that I am not this experience, that I am a full being. And this moment is just an experience that I'm having, but it's not a reflection of me. So things that make us feel proud, that make us feel powerful, these are our truth. And this is our story. And this is something that I do, and it's become a ritual, and I'll share the ritual with you in a second about what I'm doing with them. But it's really been powerful for me, not only for me as a being, but also something that my children do now and that I do with my friends. And it's like writing down simple fun facts, accomplishments, special life events, things that you love about yourself. This is your truth. Because there's moments where I'm experiencing the world and it's not reflecting back to me what I really feel like I truly am. And so I think, how can I take my power back and how can I fortify myself with the evidence of my greatness? And so the way that I use this, once I discovered these facts, I made a list and I have the list on me at all times. Now that I'm not going so many places, it's easy to access it. But a fun thing that I've done for myself is these have become personal affirmations. I will write them on Post-it notes and I'll put them on my mirrors and put them on doorknobs, put them on cabinets in the kitchen. I will record myself reading to myself about myself, telling me why I'm amazing. Reminding myself of the art exhibition that I had or the performance that I did when I was, you know, it's like remind ourselves of all the beautiful things. How often do we sit down and we talk about how amazing we are and the accomplishments we've had? And if it's a new practice, sitting with someone you love and that cares about you deeply and fully. Sitting across the screen from someone, if you can't access them in person, to say, can we sit down and I will tell you all the things I'm proud of right now, and can you share with me the things you're proud of and we hold space for each other? So think about ways that you can practice this story, because it is your story. The thing that I also find for myself is, especially when I am thinking about going into the classroom with my students, I really don't believe in bringing them any trauma. I'm coming as a full being. I am authentic, but I don't want to leave them with anything that's not theirs to carry. So in order for me to come to the table 100% me, I have to remind myself of who I am. And then be proud enough to share it. And then invite them to also share it. So I would love for you to think about ways that you can use your practice to fill yourself up, and how we can set ourselves up for success as teachers, as educators, as teaching artists, as beings, as human beings. Like, what are things that we can do that are supportive of us? And so I'll give you a couple things, and then I would love to hear questions if there's any questions or if anybody wants to share. So I'm going to share some really major things that have really helped me during this time. I am a performance-based artist. So I'm a performer, I use film and video, and I can't interact with people because of this environment we're in. A lot of the exhibitions and things that I had on the calendar have been postponed. And so I stopped this concept of feeling like I had to make new work for the sake of making work, but instead I started to use my art as a way to flex my muscle. And so something that I do is I do video journaling. So as a performance-based artist, I move my body. And so I would just record myself, and if I was feeling sad or anxious or tired, I would just let my body move and sculpt the space. And then I'd go back and look at it. And I was creating these journals and saying, wow, when I felt that way, it looked like this. But then I also was documenting my joys. When I felt powerful, what did that look like? And I realized that we as creatives have the power to shift not only narratives, but we also can share things in powerful ways that impact others. And so I would invite you to think about how you can take your practice and infuse it with rituals that support you, so that when you go into your classroom, you are whole, and that maybe you're inviting your students to practice new ways, because right now we're not used to this. This is becoming normal, but it doesn't feel real. I'm still trying to break through the ether. I miss human connection. So what can we do to create rituals that make us feel so whole and so powerful and so amazing that it doesn't even matter that I can't really see your faces? That it doesn't matter that I can't change what's going on in this moment, but I can take care of me, and that hopefully this connection can make a difference. So what I'd love to do right now is see if there's any questions that came up. Precious, are there any questions you think that we should address, or if anybody wants to talk to me a little about what their rituals, or asking me more about mine?
Yeah, if anyone wants to add questions to the chat or just unmute themselves, we have about 10 minutes before we can do all the closeout, but we have some time for some questions and comments. So chat box or unmute yourself, I think that'd be good.
So someone said they'd love to see my video journals. They're actually at the BMA currently. I did video journals, and the BMA asked me to put them in their online screening room. So they're called movement responses, and I do them all the time, but they're actually currently being screened at the BMA on their online platform.
Yeah.
I would love if someone would like to share maybe a new ritual they're going to add, something they're thinking about, especially as we shift into fall, especially since you're teaching artists. I would love for someone to share what things that they're thinking about, or maybe meditation. So when you come home from work, you're making a natural object mandala. So yeah, if anyone wanted to even unmute themselves or turn their camera on, I'd love to chat with you about how you're planning to incorporate your new rituals in, if anyone feels comfortable. Let me see.
You could also, okay, never mind. Go ahead. Sarah?
I was thinking that I want to share some of what you've been teaching to my students on helping them remember their greatness and helping them create these good habits of ritual and good routine.
So let's talk that out. I love that, Sarah. So what are you thinking about?
Just the way I would start out a rehearsal and have them go through a meditation, have them go through a greatness ritual, have a little talk time maybe at a break about positive things that they're feeling about themselves. Just because I think kids in general, there's so much negativity, and they do way too much self-evaluation that's negative, that anything I can do to build into them in a positive way, I think is really helpful. And these are very concrete steps that I can do with them. So thank you.
That is wonderful. So do you feel, Sarah, there's anything that are you going to also do that for yourself in advance to kind of get that, build that muscle memory for yourself of like, oh, it feels like this to think about my greatness?
Sure. Yeah, those are things that I think I do automatically. I've never thought of it as a ritual. Blame my parents. They built this into me. But you've made it in a format that I can then figure out, okay, I can teach this to other kids, and I think they need these skills.
That is wonderful. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to share or jump on the video? I love seeing faces and hearing voices and talking things out.
Hi. I just have really enjoyed, Nicoletta, all the information you've shared. I also have 2 children. I'm a dancer, but I'm also administrator for 2 different arts organizations. And so one of the things that really just resonated with me is that idea of you need to be full yourself before you can pour out for anyone else, and to make sure that we are watering other people from our overflow. And so that really just resonated for me. I'm finding that in general, my day is an outpouring, and a giving of whatever to whomever. But also really, I'm using this these quiet months of COVID to try to reassess for myself what it is that I need. And I think one ritual that I wrote down for myself is to, 2 things. One was to dance for myself. I've spent a lot of time in the studio, but I'm either teaching a class or running a rehearsal or setting choreography or doing something else for someone else, but to just take some time to notice myself and my own movement and where I am in a moment and a space. And then I also wrote, I would like to make a practice of receiving dance. And by that, I just mean that opportunity to be in a class that's just a class for me, and not a master class that I've organized, and I'm also taking attendance, and I'm also, doing all the other things that one is want to do as an administrator. So I really appreciate all this information that you gave, and I think it's a great mindset as for all of us, teaching artists and studio artists as we're about to venture into the fall.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just wanted to kind of, that moved me when you thought about using dance for you, right? Like our art practices, we give, the world is about, like, as artists, it's our voice. So we're giving our voice or giving our passion and our talent. But when you're just doing it for you and it's not necessarily for someone else, that's very powerful. And then also I love that idea that you talked about, setting an intention for yourself to take a dance class for you. That it's like, this is just about my body. It's not about something else. So thank you for sharing that, Ashley. I really appreciate that. I think we maybe have room for maybe 1 or 2 more people. Precious is nodding. One thing I also wanted to share real quick is that I love supporting others. I have built space in my life to create a network and a community of artists that I lean on, meaning like I'll talk about the things I'm passionate about and they share with me. So if any of you are interested in gathering just to connect with me, not as like a facilitator, but like as a, it's like we're co-creating space, and I will have my tea. That is a given, that is a practice. And if you were interested, later you'll see at the end of the slides that you'll see my email. if you are interested in gathering, maybe, you know, once a month, to just talk and just say, even if you're sharing, I did this, I took a dance class, or in my class, if you say Sarah was telling me about how with your students, you're going to help them recognize their greatness. If you want to share, well, it went this way and this is how it went. I love that, because as I build my own rituals, I love sharing them with others, but then hearing what's resonating so that we all can thrive. So if you're interested, you'll bring teas and essential oils. I would love that. I think Jennifer said Jennifer wants to come. So yeah, if you are interested, send me an email. Just, you can say interested in tea with Nicoletta, or whatever you want to call it, and then I'll create that environment just so we can share and connect. Oh, okay. So anyone else want to share something that resonated, or an intention you're setting? You can either drop in the comments, like, you're setting intentions now, and intentions are just like this conversation you're having with yourself about what you're going to do for yourself. So it's like, if you're setting an intention to take a dance class, or do meditation, or buy a massage chair, or go on a walk, or swim, or whatever it is, you're going to play. Nancy, I agree. So if anyone wants to set an intention or share. So I think we have time for like maybe one more.
And
I would love. Oh, go ahead.
I think someone raised their hand. Bobby, did you want to say hello?
Hi. Hi, Nicoletta. Hi there. Well, first of all, I love the chair because I'm obsessed with wings.
Bobby, yeah, kindred.
Yeah. Yes, I was a trapeze artist, so I love the air and I love flying. So I run a trapeze school now, but unfortunately we can't teach trapeze via Zoom. It's just not possible. But we still engage our student base. And one of the things, I have a very bad spine, so one thing that I do is I teach using a foam roller how to stretch your spine and how to use what my physical therapist taught me about what makes me feel better. And that's been great for me to reach to those people. But I wanted to comment, the one thing that I did start doing, my mother passed away in March, unfortunately. And so it brought up all of my mother's story. My mother had, she had a mouth like a truck driver. And so she was also, my family's Italian. So it became a writing exercise to write a cookbook with the family stories and family recipes. So I had been doing that almost daily. And that became my ritual. And the stories were very cathartic and very healing. And I was able to connect with different relatives that I hadn't talked to in a while, and shared, different chapters. And then I started sharing the recipes on Instagram Live, cooking with people and talking through that whole process. So it actually was very cathartic and very healing at a time when we weren't able to be connected. But it also just bubbled up this whole other idea that my whole world is physical. My activity is physical. I'd never been forced to focus on something like writing. Right. So it brought out a totally different side. So sometimes when you focus on something that you're used to, it becomes repetitive. But then I never stepped out of my box, and this just brought to light that I am stepping out of my box right now. I kind of have no choice because there's just no trapeze in my living room. But the air will be there when we're out of quarantine. The trapeze will be there when we're out of quarantine. But yeah, I just want to share that. And again, I want to know who made the chair, because I want one.
Okay. Yeah. So I got this chair from a company called New York Thrones, or NYC Thrones. It's something. I'm in
New York, so that's great.
I'm in Maryland, so they do deliver. So I'm not an ambassador. I bought the chair. So, but I just Google like New York Thrones or NYC Thrones or something like that. Yeah. And if was there a question? Sarah, do you have a question?
I just wanted to say that when you were talking about boundaries, and I deal with youth. I'm a teaching artist for kids K through 12. They have a real tough time with boundaries. So this has really hit home with me, how to help them, because they don't know how to say no politely. They don't set good boundaries. They let too much in. They let they give too much out. So thank you for this.
Welcome. And Bobby, thank you, Sarah. And Bobby, just to go back, I also want to thank you for sharing that. It moved me. I was thinking about my grandmother who's no longer here. She's passed on a while, it's been a while, but for me, when I think about cooking or I think about certain smells, it brings her back to me. So thank you for even reminding us that sometimes things that are out of our comfort zone or not our typical practices can help us feel more connected and more whole. So thank you, Bobby.
No problem, anytime. And yes, my grandmother was a huge influence as well.
Yeah.
Those recipes all came from Nona.
Ways. So I think we have only a couple more minutes. Like I said, I think before I pass it back to Precious, if we could go to the slide that has my information, if you don't mind. Oh, I didn't even talk about this slide. Take a screenshot of this, guys. This is how, we'll talk about it during our tea. If you want to join me for tea, I'll talk about this. But this is how I check in with myself to make sure that I am keeping my cup full. So take a screenshot. And then if you can advance to the slide that has my contact information. So definitely, if you're interested in, just joining me for tea, this is what I love to do. I love to talk about rituals and share things because we are in a space where, we need to share our joys because joys are infectious, right? Happiness is something that I want to cultivate with community, with artists, where we're talking about things we're excited about and we're supporting each other as we make magical things happen for ourselves and our students. So if you're interested in joining me for tea, send me an email like tea with Nicoletta, yes. And then I'll figure out a good time. We can do something just to gather like over Zoom or something. But I'm gonna pass it back to Precious.
Thank you.
Unless, if there's any other, that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Once again, this is going to be recorded. So if you missed a slide or you want to go back, they will be available on NASA's YouTube channel. So before we end, we'd love to just take a minute to hear from you about how this session resonated with you. So in a second, our producer will pop up a quick poll. Perfect. So if you could just answer those questions, it should take you 2 seconds before you exit, that would be great. And as you're filling out this really quick poll, once again, we want you to continue the conversation on our Facebook page. So you can feel free to go to the Mid-Atlantic Retreat group and ask more questions. And Nicoletta, you're free to join the group too if you want to continue the conversation. So please join us on Facebook as well. The 2020 Mid-Atlantic Artist Virtual Retreat is co-sponsored project of the Mid-Atlantic State Arts Agencies in partnership with the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies. We are super grateful for their generous support of all these collaborators and grateful for your participation today. Please watch out for an email in your inbox for a brief survey about all the sessions you may have attended throughout this week and let us know what you think. So thank you so much. And yes, there will be a NASA YouTube channel. You'll get all the emails about it. And you can also ask us any questions that you need on our Facebook group. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the retreat. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your retreat. And thank you for sharing space with me. I appreciate it. And I hope to connect with more of you soon.
Thank you.